Let me give it to you plain and simple, just like this, right? Just because you make money on a trade, just because you're green on a trade, does not mean that trade was successful. Just because it ended up being in the profit, just because you hit the buy, you hit the sell, you hit the short, you hit the whatever you're trading, options, futures, stocks, cryptos, whatever. Just because you make money on that trade does not mean that trade was successful, right? You might be thinking in your brain, like, what was this kid talking about? Like, I'm up on the trade, that right? I made money, so it must have gone right, right? And I'll give it to you straight like this: my first ever $1,000 plus day was probably my worst trade I've ever taken in my life. 100%. I made the most money I've ever made in one day within probably 20 minutes, maybe, give or take. And I've never seen, I know you can make money within minutes, whatever the case may be, but I never personally did that myself. I've never in my life until this moment I'm about to explain to you. And yes, I made over $1,000 on this trade, but this trade was probably the worst trades I've ever taken in my life. But I just so happened to be in the green. So let me break it down to you, and then I'll explain what I mean. Like, just because you're green doesn't mean you're successful. So back in college, back when I was in school, like 8 years ago, not more than that now, it's crazy to think about it, but like 9 years ago, back in college, I probably was like a sophomore or freshman. I got put onto trading by a friend that was in this fraternity that I was in. He put me on to like, hey, he showed me his account essentially on like Charles Schwab or TD Ameritrade, I forget what it was. But he had a couple thousand in there. And when you're in college, right, a couple thousand is a lot of money. And still to this day, a couple thousand is a lot of money for like your everyday Joe Schmo, regardless of how old you are. And I looked at his account. He had a couple accounts, a couple of like trading accounts, whether it be like I said, Charles Schwab, TD Ameritrade, what else? I don't even think Webull was a thing back then, but he had a couple trading accounts. And I'm like, yo, bro, why are you still in school? Like, if you're making all this money, why are you still in school? Like, you could just leave UConn, not have to pay for these classes, and go about your life. And he was like, nah, I'm trying to get into PT, shit like that. That's besides the point. That's what got me into trading, right? It got me into trading at an early age. Like, I probably was 19, 20, around there. All right, so boom, I set up my account. At the time, so I had a TD Ameritrade and I had a Robinhood account. So I had my laptop. I'm in class, right? I'm in this nutrition class. And I always have my laptop with me. And nutrition, I didn't really care. I would just go to class and like look at the charts because it was around market open. I think class was from like 9 to 9:50. So it was around market open, had my laptop with me. And I'm like, okay, so I would do my analysis on TD Ameritrade, right? On Thinkorswim, that's the trading platform. I would look at the charts, support, resistance, the shit that I trade. I still to this day trade support, resistance, all that good stuff. But I was a newbie. I had money, right? So let me explain where this money that I had came from. So I had about 3,000 in my account, and the 3,000 wasn't my money. The $3,000 was because I was in school at the time. I would take out loans like Sallie Mae. Fuck Sallie Mae, but I would take out loans. Sallie Mae, hey, I need a couple bands to pay for these classes. So I take out loans, and I take out loans to pay rent, right? So in my dumbass mind, I'm like, instead of paying for everything early, instead of paying for all my classes and my rent early like I normally did the semesters before, I took some of that money. Just dumbest thing you could do. I took the money that I used for my expenses, my rent, my classes, food, things like that, and I used that money, a couple thousand of those dollars. I put it into my trading account. I was like, all right, it's lit. I got about 3K into my account. I'm like, all right, let's put that in there. Let's make it work. And then we don't even need to worry about rent. We don't need to worry about nothing because I'm about to make this 3,000 into like 50K in a whole semester, in a week, in a day, right? That's my mentality. And this is when I was just starting to get into options. And for those of you that know, or maybe you don't know, options are a derivative that are very risky, right? Especially if you don't know the Greeks, especially if you don't know what you're doing. Options is very difficult, and I still don't 100% comprehend every little detail with options, but at the end of the day, it's just difficult, right? So you could see where I'm going with this, right? There's a formula for travesty, or I don't even know if that's a word. There's a formula for disaster here, right? So boom, go back to class. I'm in this nutrition class, right? 3K in my account, and at that time I would trade options, and I would trade earnings, right? So MasterCard had its earnings report that day, pre-market, I guess, had a great earnings report. When market opens, boom, MasterCard goes up. I said, fuck it, bought a couple calls, boom, my account goes up. My account goes up $1,000, bro. My account goes up $1,000. And I'm like, yo, this is crazy. I'm probably up like 900 at this point in time. And I'm like, let's see if we can hit 1K. Because I knew it didn't hit that 1K point, but I was like hovering around the 9K or the 900. And meanwhile, I'm in class on my MacBook. So I'm hovering around the 900. And then out of nowhere, my account starts to plummet. Instead of being up 900, and I'm up like 5. Okay, I'm like, all right, in my mind, let's hold. It's going to go back up, right? They had a good earnings report. Then I'm like, damn, I'm up 200 now, slowly decreasing. And then I'm like, out of nowhere, bro, my account's in the red. My account is now in the red. And I'm like, fuck, man. They had a great earnings report. So I buy more calls, because I'm like, there's no way, right? We're going to end in the red, because we had a great earnings report. So I'm like, there's no possible way. Boom. I buy more calls. I look back. This is all within minutes, right? I look back, I'm down like 600-700. And I'm in class like, fuck, not listening to what the professor's saying. I'm like, yo, what the fuck is going on? Like, what is going on right now? So I'm holding the trade. I have no stop loss. I have no entry, or I have no exits, whether I'm up or down, right? I'm a beginner. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. A couple $1,000s in my account. Formula for disaster. Thankfully, it ends up going back in my way. It goes back to around the 1,000-1,100 range. And I actually close, because I'm like, I'm giving myself a heart attack here. I'm mad nervous. I'm in class, sweating. And thankfully, it ended up going back in my direction. And I was up $1,100 on the day, green on the day. But that was the worst possible trade I could have ever taken in my life, even though that was the first time I've ever made that much money, right? And you can kind of put 2 and 2 together. But the reason is, just because you make money doesn't mean it was a successful trade. Going into the trade, first of all, I didn't even have that much knowledge on options. That's the first mistake. Trading $3,000 or around $3,000, and I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, right? That's a large sum of money, especially to trade options. Didn't know what the fuck I was doing. It was more so a gambler's mindset. I was more so flipping a coin, because with earnings, it's very volatile. And I was just hoping and praying, which is the last thing you want to do when you're trading. I had that gambler's mindset, like, all right, we're going to make more money. We're going to make 50K. I was too focused on the money, and rather than focused on the process of learning, on the process of trying to get better. Because I was new to the game, right? Just because you have thousands of dollars, whatever, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and just because you've made money elsewhere in your life, right? You could be a house flipper, you could be into real estate, you can be into whatever. It does not correlate, it does not translate over to trading. Trading is its own thing, right? Trading is its own beast. And I went into that with no plan, no discipline, no strategy, no anything, right? And the reason I bring up that story, the reason I mention all this, right, is just because I made whatever $1,100, I was obviously happy at that point in time, but you don't know the emotional roller coaster I was going through, being that I was up X amount, like 900, like I said, I was down like 700, and then I was back up, right? You don't want to do that at all, right? There's a couple things I could have done, right? I could have took my profits at when I was up the $900. Could have cut my losses when I was down, whatever, $200. But I had no set strategy, no risk to reward, no nothing. I was just hoping and praying. Let's make it all in one shot. Let's pay for my whole semester of classes. Let's help my family out all in one trade, right? That's the last thing you want to do. No discipline, no strategy, no structure. You're going to fail. And if I continue to do that, and the next day I continue to trade, and no, I traded with the same mindset, same mentality, which was let's go in and let's do what we got to do. And you know what? We lost a lot of money. We lost almost the whole 3K. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, in my mind, I was like, how is this possible? Is this real? How do I get my refunds? And I know, like now I know what went wrong, but at the time I thought like the market was against me. I thought, like, how is this even possible? I made $1,100. I made more money than some people make in a week, and I'm in minutes, and then I lost almost 3 times that the following day. And to summarize it all, if I continue to trade like that, I mean, a blind squirrel can find a nut every once in a while. You can get lucky, how I got lucky in that trade, but it's gonna be sustainable. You're not gonna be consistent. You're just gonna be gambling. At the end of the day, you might as well go to the casino. You might as well go to Mohegan Sun. You might as well be in Vegas, because you're not going to be consistent. So my point to you is that just because you're a green does not mean doesn't mean it's a good trade. And just because you're a red doesn't mean it's a bad trade, right? You could have followed your set plan. You could have had a great stop loss, great risk to reward, great TP. You set everything up perfectly, but sometimes trades don't go your way. But as long as you exit where you say you're going to exit, you enter where you say you're going to enter, and you take your profit, cut your losses where you say you're going to, that makes you a great trader. And over time, trading is a probability game. Over time, if your risk to reward ratios are correct, you only need 1 out of 4 trades, 1 out of 3 trades to go your way, and you can still be profitable, still be green, right? So, again, last thing, the point to you, if you follow a plan, if you're disciplined, if you do the things, it may be boring, right? It may be boring, like to gain muscle and shit like that. You got to eat the same, say you eat chicken and rice every single day. It's boring, right? But it's going to get you the results, right? If your mindset is your money, it may be boring. The best traders are the most boring traders, because they follow a plan, they follow a strategy, and they're not flipping a coin, right? So, one last time, let me see this again. Just because you're green does not mean the trade went well, and just because you're red does not mean the trade did not go well. Stick that into your brain, stick that into your mental, because that's going to change how you view trading, right? And trading is, I believe, 90 to 95% mental, and then it's the 5 to 10% of what you're actually looking at in the charts. So take what you must with that, but that is my little anecdote, my little story on how I was up and then how I was down. So stay tuned, more to come. Peace.